Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play of Star Ruler 2. I am Sir Bedian and we are going to unpause in a moment and continue on. Before we do that, we do want to line up a little bit of production and a little bit of colonization. And colonization is one of the core elements of the game, a lot more in my opinion than some other 4X games, because it really does play a huge role in the game. But before we do that, we'll go have a look at our planet. All right, so this is our homeworld. Okay, it's got 3 out of 1 population. It's got 2 pressure, a capacity, and 0 pressure. It has an income of 0 and a loyalty of 1. Okay, well, what can we do about that? How does that work? So with population, obviously, the more population produces income, and high population increases pressure capacity. So a big planet with a lot of population will have a lot of pressure capacity, and pressure capacity and pressure play probably the largest impact on your economy than pretty much anything else, right? So pressure is a bit of a complex um, thing, right? It's a little bit hard to explain, so I'll give it a try. Basically, I think I covered it in the last episode a little bit, but I'll cover a bit more detail. So basically, here's how pressure works, all right? Resources will give pressure, okay? So at the moment, our current pressure capacity is 2, okay? And if you remember, chemicals provides a pressure of 3 into research. Okay, so let's say we've shipped these chemicals out to, let's say we get the chemicals produced. So, and we'll, let's assume we ship them out to kill 1, all right? So, so on kill 1, we have 2 pressure capacity, and we would have 3 research pressure. Okay, and what that means is that civilians will take these developed tiles and they will produce up to 3 pressure worth of research buildings. All right, not research complexes, but research buildings, civilian buildings that produce research. And each one of those buildings will produce a research point. So the planet itself, with those research buildings, will produce research. Okay, and then those research points go up into a pool, and then you get research points, right? Sounds fairly straightforward. If the pressure capacity is excess, then you get less efficient. So because we only have 2 pressure capacity, if we had 3 pressure coming in, we might not get 3 research worth of buildings. We might only get 2 research, or 2.5 or something like that, right? So essentially, you don't want to go over pressure, because what that basically means is that if you have, say, 3 research pressure, but you only have a pressure capacity of 2, it essentially means that there's no infrastructure on the planet to support the amount of demand. All right, so like, you don't have the roads, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the skilled labor, you don't have the funds. It can mean a wide variety of things, but essentially it means that there's no capacity on this planet to build to build fully efficient buildings. All right, and pressure can be balanced as well. So you can, for example, have 3 research pressure and 3 wealth pressure. And if you have the 6 pressure capacity, then on the planet you'll get 3 research buildings and 3 wealth buildings, right? And then the planet will produce 3 research and 3 wealth. So you can mix and match. Obviously, if you have focus, so for example, if you have 6 research capacity, 6 research pressure, you'll get more research out of the planet than if you had 3 research pressure and 3, or if you had 2 planets that have 3 and 3, and you focus them, you get a little bit more of that particular one, rather than if you mix and match. But it can come in handy. You also have buildings that you build yourself, right? Obviously, civilian buildings are free, but you also have buildings that you build yourself. So a planetary defense grid, right? Planetary defense grid will shoot missiles at nearby enemies on the spatial map, right? So it has 10 launchers doing 250 DPS within 450 range. Pretty cool. Um, but you need support ships, right? So if there are no support ships around planets, then missile silos will not work. You can see down in the little italicized area, if there are enemy fleets in orbit and you do not have any remaining support ships, then the missile silos are disabled. You also have planetary artillery cannons. So this one deals a cannon that deals 200 damage every 5 seconds at 1500 range. Very useful. All right. It's got much less DPS, but it's got a lot less range, and you still need the satellite guidance system. So you need to have a little defense fleet in orbit. A warehouse provides labor storage, right? So we can generate labor, and a planet can store labor that it can burn off. For projects. If it doesn't have the labor storage, then it will only produce at the labor per minute, or if it runs out of it, right? And if you have a look, what's interesting is some buildings also have reduced costs, right? So this one is full cost, and where you put it. A warehouse has a reduced cost on desert biomes, and this one here is desert, right? So we would potentially want to put our warehouse over here. Might not be able to put it here because that's oceanic, but if you put it here, then that will reduce it by from the two. So two of those tiles will have reduced cost. So you can see here, costs 300,000 to build, but if we put it over a desert tile, it only costs 200,000 to build, right? And only 65,000 to maintain compared to 105. It's also very important to put it on developed sections. So because everything's undeveloped, it costs 300,000 to build. If you put it on the developed tile, even though it's forest, it still cuts down the cost. So putting it on developed areas and go away, and putting it on reduced cost biomes is very important, especially for your maintenance cost. FTL storage, for example, will increase your FTL storage. So, and if you have FTL crystals on the planet natively, then it'll double the storage and reduce cost on crystalline biomes. So there's a lot of things. So now, what's interesting is that you also have these ones, right? So research complex. This one gives one research generation, so it generates one research, but it also adds one research pressure. So we'll get the one research generation from the complex, and we'll get a little bit extra research from the extra pressure. So just because it generates one on its own doesn't necessarily mean that you only get one from the planet, right? Factory produces flat labor. A forge increases labor by a percentage, so it's very handy. But you get penalties for building more of them on the same planet. Mega farms create a unexportable food resource. So, for example, if you can't find any food on another planet that you can ship in, but you really need that food to upgrade the planet, you can build a mega farm. Hydrogenator does the same for water. So you can't export it, unlike the native food and water, but it will provide it for the planet. They can be kind of big, and they are also expensive. So generally you don't necessarily want these unless you absolutely need them. Space elevator here increases the construction speed of support ships on this planet by 40%, which can be extremely handy. And you can see how it applies, right? Cannot afford on current budget. 200,000 will be borrowed, costing 300,000 from the next budget. It looks like there might be a penalty as well if you borrow from the next budget. So you don't get. So like if we borrow so it looks like 200,000 will be borrowed, but it will take away 300,000. So we might only have 200,000 left. So it's not it's not a great thing to borrow from the next budget. And Metropolis will replace 6 regular cities to increase the total pressure capacity by 6, and we get discount on forest. So this planet will be great for metropolises and stuff like that. You can also make orbitals. We can't make any right now, but that's fine. We can't apparently make ships, but I think that's because I haven't unpaused yet. So let's unpause, and we'll start ticking away, and you can see that it is on real time. And we can have a look at our fleet now as well while our planet organizes itself. So combat is done on a ship-by-ship basis, and yet not on a ship-by-ship basis, right? So you have, for example, this beam ship, right? It's got, looks like 3 lasers. Yep, it got 3 lasers and some support, some engines, something like that. So it's a little beam ship, right? And this one is a gunship, and I think, yep, there's some missile boats as well. So we have little ships, and they are specialized and focused on specific weapon types, but they can't fly around on their own, right? They're support ships. Um, yeah, they can't exist on their own. Instead, they get attached to a capital ship or a flagship, right? What I might do before we actually talk about fleets, let's talk about. I do need that production up. Okay, now we can build, right? So we got orbitals. So Singularity Lab can all be built on a system with a black hole. Okay, never mind. So shipyard. So we can build a shipyard and drop it anywhere we want. But a shipyard orbital, construction of ships in a shipyard has a 20% cheaper build cost. Very handy. And has 6 innate labor generation per minute. And planets can export their own labor to shipyards within a range at a reduced cost. So shipyards are great for building ships. Very handy. Commerce Station allows you to buy resources and allows you to do trade. And, there are all kinds of things. Defense platforms, shooter things, stuff like that. They're very expensive, but they serve very useful things. We'll cover dry docks later. Okay, now ships. As you can see, we can only really build capital ships, right? We can order. Can't really order these either. They're ordered separately. So battleships, we can't afford one. Heavy carrier dreadnoughts, we already have a heavy carrier fleet. We don't really need much. And you can also see that the planet's also developing, and we have some cities too, which is nice. But what we really want is we want some scouts. So go ahead and we'll build 3 scouts, and we're generating 4 labor a minute. A scout costs 3.7 labor, so it's going to take 57 seconds to build. It's also going to cost 37,000 space bucks to build and 36,000 space bucks to maintain. So you can see that with these 3, it's reduced our space bucks, and our next budget will probably end up being reduced. But our population is growing as well. We've got 3 population, so that's gone and increased. So that's why we're not as much. We also have 3 pressure capacity as well, which is perfect, and we're producing 60,000 income instead of consuming it. So we'll let that. So while that builds, we'll focus on a heavy carrier. So right, the capital ship is allowed to be bigger, and it's usually a lot more powerful. It also has supply, all right, and ships that support ships don't need supply but they use supply from their flagship, all right. And if we have a look, right, we can't tell this beam ship to move, but if we take the heavy carrier, we can tell it to move, and every support ship that's with it will also move with it as well. And you can manage support ships. You can order up purchases. We'll add a support grip. We also have some heavy gun ships, so we'll add 8 of those. You can see it'll cost us 128,000 space bucks to build and 0 to maintain. So when we click build, all right, they don't get built here. We'll turn on order by as well. If we go to our planet, it should start building them as it once it actually runs out. So you can see that it's ordered 8 heavy gunships. But if we go here, it'll probably start building them once it actually finishes the scouts. So with a scout, we'll go and auto explore. We don't need to explore really fast, but we can auto explore with FTL. And it will use up to half of the Empire's FTL stores. So we're generating 1 a second, right? And you can see that to use a hyperdrive, it takes 40 FTL, or about 40 FTL to jump that distance. So we could spend 40 FTL to jump it, or we could just let it fly normally. We're going to let it fly normally at the moment. But for now, we'll do the heavy carrier, and what I might do... Yeah, we'll hold off on that for a sec. All right. And we have another scout, so we will tell him to auto explore. And the scouts are smart enough; they'll recognize that somebody's already exploring here, so they'll go explore over there. Let's see what we got. So we have some fish, a food. So we have a food here, and we have a food here. And this one's got a tropical paradise, right? So whoever gets this food will also get one influence pressure. All right. So this food will allow planets to level up, but wherever we send it, it'll also get one influence pressure on that planet. All right. That's handy. This one here has explosives and noxious atmosphere. So noxious atmosphere means that a maximum population is reduced by one. This might mean that we might not be able to colonize it at all because a planet needs one population to, be a planet. So we'll have to figure something out because it has explosives, which is a tier 1 resource. And you can see here that explosives provides 3 defense pressure. So whatever planet gets these explosives is going to want to generate some defense. Over here we have moons, 4 of them, but I'm not sure if you can actually build on all 4 of them. Anyway, and it has supercarbons. Now, supercarbons is a tier 2 resource, which means the planet needs to be tier 2 to actually produce them. But it provides 12 labor pressure. So whoever gets these supercarbons is going to have 12 pressure of labor, which means that we're going to need a decent planet to actually make use of that pressure, right? We're going to need a decent population. We also have an asteroid which will produce rare metals for 6 minutes, which will give more research. That could be handy. And we also have discovered some remnants, a remnant Therius, a remnant fleet specifically. Okay, so it's got 3,500 health. It's got 1,800 strength, which is a combination of DPS and various other things, and 20,000 supply. And it's protecting an energy cache. That's good because we want energy. So we're going to take our heavy carrier with 2,800 strength, health, and 3,200 strength, which is substantially more powerful than theirs, and we are going to go and attack them. In the meantime, our scout is moving on down there, so we'll let him do his thing. Yep, 2 scouts built. Good. Planets will actually orbit as well, which is really cool. And you'll notice that each city has 30 population. So because we have a max of 30 population, we only get 3 cities. It'll continue to develop, but a bit slower. Alright, so heavy carrier is moving out. Our scout is almost at this location, and the 3rd scout has been built, so we'll go ahead and order him to auto-explore. Alright, we are picking up contacts. So we have an asteroid. Now, this one's a bit different than the other ones, right? This one has an option of 3. So we've got morphic materials. So this one adds 2 pressure of the consuming planet's native resource. So each planet has 2 native resource. So this one has, let's do this one. So this one's water, right? Water is not really pressurable, so there's not going to be any use sending it there. But this one here has 3 pressure. So if we send morphic materials to kill 4, we're going to get 5 research pressure instead. Very handy. Alternatively, spice increases loyalty to the planet by 6, increases influence stake, and provides 3 influence pressure. Also very useful. And Pekelm, 3 defense pressure and increases acceleration from colony ships leaving the planet by 100%, which makes it easier to colonize planets from that from the system that Pekelm is being used in. Now, you don't get all these 3. You only get 1. And when you start mining the asteroid, you have to pick which one you want to use. So, we'll need to build a mining base, but we'll do that later. But it's very interesting because this one allows us to build, and we want to decide which one we want. Personally, I think I probably want to go with the spice so we can start getting some influence. But we're going to need some planet because we already can get plenty of research, but we need the influence first. It'll depend on what else we find. So we found some. Okay, so we got the planet on here now. So we have some food, more food and grain and water. So plenty of water and uh, some water. This one gives, and it's not another tropical paradise. We got the influence pressure. This one's got a moon. This one's got nothing. This one's got nothing. We got two more ore asteroids, and yeah, so this one's got morphic materials. So we're not going to be picking morphic materials from here. So we're probably going to go with the spice. And there's a debris field that we can explore as well as luxury tokens, negotiate cards. Very handy. We're definitely going to want those. All right, we'll continue on, and we're about to engage combat. So we're going to zoom in there. And you remember what I said, right? Each ship acts, it doesn't act or move on its own, but it does still function on its own, right? So it has its own health, it has its own armor, it has its own weapons, and the more you have them, the better. Looks like one of these heavy gunships has come in a little bit hot, which means it's probably going to get blown up. Inertia is a thing. Oh yeah, he is so wrecked. But the fleet's turning, so that he might survive. Yeah, so inertia is a thing, right? So the fleet needs to speed up, accelerate, and slow down. And you can see all these beam boats and gunships opening fire and missiles trading and stuff like that. Let's have a look at our heavy carrier. We'll open it up. So you have here plate armor, right? The ships are designed on a hex grid, and I'll cover that once I actually go into designs. But you have here, right? So it's got 2 missile launchers, which are 3 hexes. Looks like this thing's might have actually taken damage. Yeah, we're taking a little bit of damage. So this armor's been taking some damage, and this one's taking some damage, and we took a bit of hit on some of the support commands. So yeah, our front's taking a bit of damage. We've got a hyperdrive, we've got a bridge, support command. We have 2 lasers out here with firing arcs a little bit off the center. And we have our engines, which are actually a bit vulnerable, so that's a little bit scary. Overall, it's an okay design, but it's primarily a missile, so this one doesn't want to get too close. But if we have a look, say, at this gunship, this one has been beat to absolute hell. It's got 4.9 out of 27 health. So its railgun has been knocked offline. This armor is gone. This armor is gone. This railgun is offline. This crew deck is gone. So basically, it's an engine with a little bit of crew, right? So essentially, this gunship is going to get blown up, right? And if we continue on, there, now it's being destroyed. If we have a look at a heavy carrier, we'll go to our support boats. You'll see that, yep, we've lost 8 gunships so far. I'm actually down 3 gunships as well. You're going to suffer casualties on your support ships. It's guaranteed. You can't build support ships big enough where they will viably survive, right? Well, you could, but yeah. It would be an absolute hassle, right? But if we have a look at their remnant, it's absolutely getting shredded, right? Its entire front is gone. Its bridge is at the bottom has been knocked out. It's got 1 railgun battery and engines, and it's basically destroyed, right? Its fusion generator is offline, so even if it could, well, the generator is more for supply than anything else. But essentially, they're about to lose their flagship. So if we keep watching a little bit longer, you can see it taking damage, getting hammered, and pop. There it goes. Without their flagship, the rest of the fleet is essentially going to just die. So we will let our mighty fleet mop up. And we can see here that it is it is taking a little bit of damage. The strength is falling a little bit. Optimal originally is 3, so we've lost 0.3000 strength. But yeah, they're gone. So we can already start moving to pick up the core, and the system is now ours. So let's talk colonization. All right, this is our home world. This is fine, but it's kind of lame, right? It's producing food and water, but other than that, it's kind of pathetic, right? We want our home world to be big and mighty and powerful, right? So what do we want? I think we want this thing, right? Base stack 3. I like base stack 3. It's got super carbon, so we don't need to ship it. It's going to have massive labor pressures. It's going to build like crazy, and it's got moon, so we can make it a bigger colony overall, so it can have the room to exploit that pressure and have the big colony and stuff like that. I like base stack 3 for our primary core world. Let's work on it then. So what do we need? Well, first of all, we need to colonize it. All right, so you right click on it and you click colonize this, and this will automatically take any planets that have a reasonable amount of population, and it will send colony ships to the planet. For planets that um, are basic, you just get colonize this. For planets with resources that are tier 1 and higher, you get colonize this and auto import to level 2. And what this basically means is that it will set up this planet to automatically bring in resources that it needs to get up to level 2. So we'll hit that. All right. And what does it say? Well, we got colonists coming in, and it's automatically queued 1 water, 2 food, and a level 1 resource. Okay, and we need a level 1 resource. Well, what do we want? We want research. So we're also going to queue and upgrade this one, so we can get our chemicals, right? And you can see now that we now have 2 water queued and 3 food queued. We don't have to worry about the level 1 queued for importing, because we're already colonizing a level 1, and that will eventually set that up to export. So as soon as this one's ready to export, it's going to switch and export over here. And you can see how this is set up: 2 food, 1 water, 1 level 1 resource. All right. So how do we do this then? I'm not sure. I have to find out if these are actually exportable. I'm pretty sure they are, but actually, let's just wait for it to colonize. All right, let's just wait for it to colonize. Before we do that, though, we'll wait for this thing to pick up the energy pods, and you can see now colony ships are starting to expand out. I believe each one carries 0.1 of a million people. Okay, so we've got 500 energy. What we'll do is we will now move to attack that remnant. Okay, and we'll also speed it up a little bit as well, because it's being a bit slow. 1.5 times is fine. If you remember, if we had this thing, then these guys will be accelerating at twice the speed. But we can see now that the colony is, well, our colony ships are starting to arrive. And there we go. So it's 0.06 of a colonist. 0.06 of a billion people. Right? That's a lot of people. Obviously, you want to protect your colony ships, because if they get destroyed, then more colony ships will be sent out. And because your income is based on how many population you have, you obviously want to keep your population high. So this one is almost colonized to level, has almost got 1 population, and this one has almost got 1 population because we're sending people out here as well. So let's wait this one, and there we go. So required for level 1, we need water and food. Okay, and obviously it looks like this water and food isn't getting shipped out, probably because it's trying to remain a level 1 planet. But if we then export resources to here, okay, it'll always be, actually, will it? Well, I guess it's not going to export. Never mind. So that means we need food and water. Well, there's food here, and there's water here. All right. So we got 1 food and 1 water. We need another food. So this one, and we need a 3rd food. So this one. And last thing we need is another water, and our combat is proceeding nicely. This one. Alright, heavy carrier has obliterated the enemy. We'll go pick up some those luxury tokens. Alright, so we'll let that colonize, and we will put a break in the episode now. Pause it real quick, as we are running out of time. So I'll throw these 2 episodes up right now, and continue recording in a little bit longer. And I'll put further episodes up. So like, subscribe, the usual, and I will see you in the next one.